What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got another live fantasy football mock draft for you back on FantasyPros, and this will be a 10-team PPR mock where we are drafting from that 5th overall position, so smack dab in the middle of this thing. Roster-wise, same as always. 1 quarterback, 2 RBs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and then 5 bench spots. So that's pretty much all you need to know, and we can get into this thing. And while we load, a quick reminder, if you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, and also give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. But in the meantime, we are back on the board here, and the first 4 picks have been made. McCaffrey, Barkley, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara. You know, even though I'm not as high on Alvin Kamara as some others might be, I do think at the end of the day, these will probably be the most likely first 4 picks in a lot of drafts. You could swap in Derrick Henry if it's half-point PPR, definitely if it's standard scoring. But considering the other guys that are available here, I'm between 2 players. They're at the running back position, spoiler, I guess, but they are Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler. And if this was the real deal in, August and September, I'd probably go with Austin Eckler, but this is a mock draft. I'm kind of curious to see if Eckler can fall to us in the second round. I think that would be pretty insane, but, I've seen crazier things happen, and Derrick Henry, it's hard to argue with his rushing upside, with his touchdown upside, so I don't mind taking a chance on him here, and it's not really a chance. He's, these last 2 years, he has been great. So I'm all right taking Derrick Henry at the 105 and then seeing what happens with Austin Eckler later. But in full point PPR scoring, I fully do believe that Eckler is in a phenomenal situation, and he is a guy that has, top 5 running back upside. So I do urge you guys, even though we're going in a bit of a different direction here, to be all in on Eckler for 2021. And as you can see here, we go with Derrick Henry, and I'll be curious to see where Austin Eckler goes, if it is in the second round, if it's in the first round. And just pulling it up here, you see that after Henry, we have Stephon Diggs, then Jonathan Taylor, Ezekiel Elliott, Austin Eckler. That's what I like to see here at the 109. You could make the case that it should be earlier, but either way, seeing him as a first rounder makes me happy. Then Tyreek Hill, Cam Akers, Nick Chubb, Devontae Adams, a bit of a run on wide receivers here. We should mention that Stephon Diggs is the first wide receiver off the board. Now, there is obviously built-in randomness with these selections to some extent, but nothing too crazy. I don't know if this is a result of the rumors of, Aaron Rodgers potentially leaving. I doubt it. But for what that's worth, I know people will be nervous about that and Devontae Adams' prospects, and honestly, everyone else's prospects, like an Aaron Jones, who we could potentially take here. I personally don't think that Rodgers will be leaving, at least in 2021, so I'm not all that worried, but obviously we'll see what happens after June 1st. For now, we can turn our attention to our second pick. We already have Derrick Henry. Looking at our cheat sheet here, and the guys that we would be considering, I like some of the wide receivers at this point in time, Justin Jefferson, Michael Thomas. I do believe that Keenan Allen could potentially drop to us in the third round. If that is the case, I think he's, very close to a smash draft at that pick in that point in time, similar to an Allen Robinson. Now, Calvin Ridley is interesting here, as is Julio Jones, because of the rumors that, Julio could very well be traded after June 1st. And, that would change a lot of things as far as how we project stats for Ridley, for Jones, for hell, even Kyle Pitts in that Atlanta offense. So right now, I'm a little bit, just hesitant to take one of these guys. Instead, I will just go into another running back. And I'm looking at Aaron Jones, I'm looking at Joe Mixon and DeAndre Swift. Again, if you want to call it risk with Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers potentially leaving, okay, I have no problem you going with a quote-unquote safer pick. In that case, that might be a Joe Mixon. That offensive line still isn't where it needs to be, in my opinion. So that's the risk with Mixon, with DeAndre Swift. He's a guy that has a lot of upside in full-point PPR scoring, but I do think he could be available to us in the third round. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Joe Mixon here. I do also like Aaron Jones, but, again, maybe Joe Mixon with Giovanni Bernard gone now. His usage, and again, usage is king, could be higher than it's ever been in 2021. But let's take a quick look at these selections after mixing. You see Aaron Jones, not a surprise there. Then DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Justin Jefferson, Michael Thomas. And man, I love Team 1's start to this draft. McCaffrey, Jefferson, Michael Thomas. That is sensational. So kudos to them. But, we wanted to make this a little bit tougher. That's why we're in that 5th overall pick. Then Travis Kelce, very good value on Travis Kelce with the 3rd pick in the 3rd round. But that's what will happen in these 10-team leagues. Pretty much every single team is going to be quite deep and is going to be making very good selections in the first several rounds just because you have so many top-heavy players at that point in time. But look, I could go DeAndre Swift here again, and that's a very viable option. But I can also look at guys like Chris Carson later on, where I don't think the drop-off between him and Swift will be all that much, or even a Myles Gaskin, something like that, as compared to Keenan Allen right now, or a Terry McLaurin, and a run on wide receivers potentially occurs here, and I think that could hurt us afterwards. So I'm going to take Keenan Allen. He is the undoubted number 1 pass catcher for the Chargers with Justin Herbert on that offense. I think that is great value. I think he can be a solid PPR wide receiver, a wide receiver 1 in that category. So I like that selection there. And I'll tell you right now, what just happened here is sensational because you see a little bit of a run on tight ends and quarterbacks and also wide receivers in the 4th round. And that means there is great value to us with our selection here. George Kittle in the 3rd, then Patrick Mahomes way too early. I continue to say this. Don't be taking a quarterback in the 3rd round or the 2nd round, unless it's a super flex league. Then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, Darren Waller. Then a run on wide receivers. Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, Julio Jones, CeeDee Lamb, Lamar Jackson. Again, we'll see what happens with Julio Jones and that situation in Atlanta, whether he gets traded or not. If he does, then obviously we'll have to adjust those rankings. But as far as he's concerned right now, I don't have an issue with where he's being picked. You can even argue it's a good value pick. So now turning our attention to the big board. And the reason I said that this worked out very well for us is because DeAndre Swift is still available. Remember when I said in the 2nd round that I was considering Swift there, but we'd be lucky if he was available in the 3rd round? Well, now it's the 4th round, 2 rounds later. DeAndre Swift is still on the board. This is a no-brainer pick. Now, I don't know how often this will actually happen in your actual drafts, but here we take advantage of the way this thing plays out. And I think we are big winners in the 4th round, no questions about it, because you look at the other selections, Amari Cooper, James Robinson with ETN there, questionable J.K. Dobbins with Lamar Jackson there, David Montgomery, that's an interesting one. We'll see what happens with the situation there in Justin Fields and Andy Dalton. But then a run on wide receivers in the 5th round, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, Mike Evans, and Najee Harris. Again, I'm not a big fan of these rookie running backs. Give me a Mike Davis. Give me a Myles Gaskin. Give me a Chris Carson all day, every day. Bargain deals compared to Najee Harris. So I'm going to, avoid the rookie running backs at this point in time. And again, I said his name before. Chris Carson here would be a great pick, but we're so heavy looking at our roster on running backs. We did an excellent job. Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift. This is great. If it's a 2-flex league, for example, I'd probably be going Chris Carson here. But instead, I'm looking at the wide receivers. I really like Robert Woods. I really like Adam Thielen and Cooper Kupp. So I think with either one of these guys from that trio, you can't go wrong. So I'm just going to go with the guy that I have ranked the highest. To me, that has Robert Woods. And he is a great number 2 wide receiver. So I love our start to this draft. But like I said, let's not get too ahead of ourselves because this will happen. Because, in 10-team leagues, you're going to have in the first couple of rounds a lot of teams that are just very strong. You really differentiate yourselves in the latter rounds. And after our selection of Robert Woods, you see Chris Carson, Cooper Kupp, Kyler Murray, Kenny Golladay, Josh Allen, Adam Thielen. Good value on Adam Thielen. TJ Hawkinson. Darn, I was really hoping Hawkinson could fall to us. Jamar Chase, very early on for Jamar Chase. I would say. I think him and T. Higgins should probably be going one after the other, then Chase Edmonds, Tyler Lockett. So again, this is here the point in time where you're going to start seeing the really good value picks. I like how we addressed our wide receiver position, considering we went running back heavy to begin with. Now, if we're looking at the wide receiver position, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, Juju Smith, nothing all that sexy. If I had to be honest with you guys, I'm looking at the tight end position. There's a couple names that I really like. Mark Andrews, not a bad situation. Kyle Pitts, he does become very, very tempting if, and that's a big if, Julio Jones leaves. But again, we don't know if that's the situation and if that's the way it'll work out. I'll take a gamble and just continue to get probably just, I think, very good value pieces at the most important position. And I'm going with Myles Gaskin here. I think he has got higher upside than a Mike Davis, just because, with Mike Davis, Atlanta has said that they're going to have a quote-unquote open competition there. I don't know what that'll necessarily mean and what it'll lead to, but I feel a little bit better about Myles Gaskin, so he would probably be the guy that I target here. Again, Mark Andrews is under consideration. That's probably the smarter pick at this point in time. I'm kind of talking myself out of going with, Myles Gaskin just because we're so deep at that position. And with Baltimore, the problem is, even though Mark Andrews is the top pass catcher, they've added so many other pass catchers at wide receiver, with Bateman, with Wallace. So what's going to happen there is Mark Andrews can continue to see the volume that he normally does. And, how's he going to be affected? But I'll just go and take him. I think he's a safe pick here. Maybe Myles Gaskin falls to us in the next round. We'll see. If he does, that'll be a steal. And you see a run on some quarterbacks. So a guy in Justin Herbert that I've been singing his praises prior goes off the board a little bit before our selection. So right now we are in a great spot because I will say this: every single team other than one, Team 9, has a quarterback. That means we can wait on the quarterback and now just get great value pieces, great bench pieces, and not worry about someone sniping us at quarterback. But we went with Mark Andrews, and then you see T. Higgins, Goddard, Higbee. So a run on tight ends a little bit, run on quarterbacks, Deebo Samuel. So, here we kind of get our wish. Myles Gaskin is still on the board, and I'm just going to immediately snap him up here. I'd rather have him over Josh Jacobs because of the Kenyon Drake edition. So this is a great bench piece, in my opinion. Kareem Hunt is also someone that would have been under consideration. And here you see Mike Davis go off the board. And Jalen Hurts also went off the board. He probably would have been the quarterback that I go with just because I like his rushing upside. But instead, I'm not panicking too much. There's guys that I still really like. A guy like a Matthew Stafford, someone like a Joe Burrow that I can kind of combine with a Joe Mixon as a stack there. Wide receiver, I was hoping outside chance that someone like a, example, Courtland Sutton would fall to us as a depth piece there. He doesn't. That's unfortunate. But I do think we've still done a good job of going best player available. Right now, you could argue that Juju Smith-Schuster is a decent depth piece. I'm looking at quarterback again. Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow will be there later on for us. These running backs, no one really sticks out to me. So we've already got a bunch of depth there. I could go a tight end with Kyle Pitts, but he'll be available to us later on as well. So I'm just going to go Juju Smith-Schuster here. I know he's got a situation in Pittsburgh where there's so many wide receivers, and Chase Claypool has that high touchdown upside, but Juju Smith-Schuster in full point PPR, he got a lot of short passes last year. I think he'll have a similar type of role, so I can add him to the squad here. And then later on, if Brendan Cooks is available, that will be my next pick. Yes, there's a big question mark as to what happens with Deshaun Watson, but if Watson is back and he plays the majority of the season, I think Brendan Cooks is a great value pick, so I will add him here, addressing the wide receiver position. And then after this point in time, we can finally address the quarterback position and then look at some other pieces. So let's see if there's any big names that went for great value at this point in time. Kyle Pitts is someone that I would have considered as a backup tight end in the 10th round. But after Brendan Cooks, you see Travis Etienne. I think that's probably closer to where he should be being drafted, not, all that close to to James Robinson. Then you see Robert Tonyan, Curtis Samuel, Damian Harris, Javonte Williams, David Johnson. At this point in time, we're in the category of running backs that are going to be low end, not so consistent plays, or guys that are going to have to rely on an injury in front of them. So right now, I'm looking at Matthew Stafford. I'm looking at Joe Burrow. And I like both options. Honestly, I might double dip on the quarterback situation. I think both have some nice high upside. I'll go Matthew Stafford first, and then let's see if Joe Burrow makes it to us. I know this is probably an atypical selection of going back-to-back quarterbacks, but just because Matthew Stafford in a new system, something like that, and I do like the upside for Joe Burrow. If you're looking for a young quarterback with upside, Burrow definitely has it, and getting that paired up with a stack with Joe Mixon, and also we did the same with Matthew Stafford and Robert Woods, so I like that for us. We might get a bad grade for doing this, but per FantasyPros, just because of the way our roster already is. But I think it's so strong to begin with, the previous other picks, that I'm not nervous about that pick at all. And then here, I'm going to finish this off with going one of my favorite, if you will, late round wide receivers, who I continue to say this, his value will not be this low a couple months in the future. Antonio Brown should be drafted right along Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in the 4th round or wherever you're taking him. Worst case scenario, 1 round, 2 rounds later, but this is crazy that he's still available for us at this point in time, getting even more depth at the wide receiver position. I absolutely love how this draft turned out for us. So let's add him here and see what grade we get. We get a B grade. So, I think it's tough to get lower than a B grade when it's a 10-team league. I really do. So I think that's probably pretty similar to what a lot of these other teams would get on this, but just breaking it down, let's quickly go over this. Derrick Henry with our first pick. I don't mind that at all. I think he's got the biggest rushing upside, biggest touchdown upside out of any running back than Joe Mixon. With Giovanni Bernard gone, I like the volume possibilities there than Keenan Allen. We were patient. We got a wide receiver 1, especially in PPR scoring. And then we got probably the best pick in this entire draft, I would say, at least up for consideration. DeAndre Swift in the 4th round. That is a home run pick. I think that potentially turns this draft into a B+ draft. Then Robert Woods, also another great value in the 5th round, might I add. Mark Andrews. I'm not too big on Mark Andrews in PPR scoring. I think he's more of a standard type of tight end, but he does belong probably in the top 5 consideration for tight ends, so I'm not mad about that at all. And then Myles Gaskin, another great value pick in the 7th round. Then Juju Smith, Brendan Cooks, guys with some upside, especially Cooks. Then we got some depth at the quarterback position, just going back-to-back quarterbacks. Since we knew no other team would go quarterback, we had that option of waiting, and then Antonio Brown to finish things off. So I actually really like this roster. I wouldn't mind this being my actual roster come September, but let me hear it in the comments. Do you guys agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? I will do my best to answer them. And again, if you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.